Nutrition for Recovery Part 2. So, the first thing that we need to consider is your hunger, but also dietary adherence. And to be able to manage those two areas, the first macromolecule we need to look at is protein, because protein plays a crucial role in promoting satiety, so feelings of fullness, and also enhancing the thermic effect of food, so one of the areas in which we burn energy. When we adjust your protein intake upwards, that might be necessary to support these benefits, but alongside that, I would actually consider foods that contain fiber just to slow down eating speed by approximately 33%, as it also delays gastric emptying as well. So essentially any food or drink that you consume, which is high in fiber, but also contains protein, is going to slowly digest, process, and metabolize. But also increasing fiber intake rapidly should be done cautiously, just to avoid any gastrointestinal discomfort, because what we don't want to do, and the best way I like to describe it, is to clog up the toilet. We don't want to clog your gastrointestinal tract with thousands and thousands of grams of fiber. Instead, we want to emphasize foods with a low energy density or glycemic load, which do contain a moderate amount of fiber, such as fruits or vegetables, legumes, whole grains, which can aid in maintaining a balanced diet, high energy flux. This is the next area that we need to focus on, because it's often characterized by a combination of vigorous physical activity and increased food intake. So that's going to correlate with a higher resting metabolic rate, which is abbreviated to RMR. And what's going to happen is it's going to result in reduced hunger and increased feelings of fullness compared to low flux states. So we need to make sure that we are monitoring our non-exercise activity thermogenesis around this to make sure that we are decreasing ever so slightly our steps post-competition, post-fat loss, post-photo shoot, just to be able to monitor our energy throughout this period. Additionally, prioritizing sleep and stress management, so looking at effective stress management techniques, is going to help to support your overall well-being, and it's also going to help to maintain your weight post weight loss, because the last thing that we want after weeks and weeks of dieting is for your weight to rocket sky high and for you to be discouraged with the progress that you should have been making just because hunger was through the roof and dietary adherence was out the window. So these strategies are going to be essential for managing the biological drivers that may lead to weight regain, as discussed in Attenuating the Biology Drive for Weight Regain, followed by Weight Loss, and that was by Melby in 2017. So please do check this source out. It's absolutely fantastic for you to understand your body, also the psychological advantage you'll gain and physiological advantage you'll gain from focusing on these two areas by breaking them down step by step into protein, fiber, low energy density, glycemic load foods, how we actually use our energy and how that's going to improve our appetite regulation, alongside the other side of the spectrum, which is to be your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and then cherry or the icing on the cake is going to be that sleep routine. So, overfeeding. What can happen post-fat loss? Well, overconsumption of calories can actually have a significant implication for metabolic health, because it primarily increases insulin resistance and is associated with increased oxidative stress. So this occurs regardless of whether the excess calories is derived from carbohydrate or fat, because both actually lead to the same fat gain if the calorie is equated. So if you've gone from extreme dieting, where you're losing roughly a kilo per week, and then you bring yourself back up to maintenance, but you start eating 400, 500, 600 calories of your maintenance, and then you actually consume 3,500 calories one evening above your maintenance, you're going to put on a pound of fat. And that doesn't matter whether you've had an extra 3,500 calories in terms of carbohydrate or fat. So that's going to often leave you feeling confused. And ultimately, when calorie intake exceeds the body's energy requirements, both macronutrients are going to contribute equally to that weight gain and the associated metabolic challenges. So we actually want to manage your calorie intake, making sure that weight is in control, but also maintaining optimal metabolic function, alongside reducing long-term health complications associated with chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes and also cardiovascular disorders. And when we actually focus on balanced nutrition and we ensure that calorie intake aligns with energy expenditure, so almost like a seesaw act where they're pretty much leveled out, you can actually regularly better control your metabolic health and mitigate the adverse effects of excess calories. So we can actually see in figure 1 here from Ribeiro back in 2019, bodybuilders were overfed for 4 weeks, and there was a big difference in terms of muscle mass and also body fat. Please do take a look at this data, and please do understand that obviously the higher energy intake is going to lead to increased body fat. We can actually see the muscle mass to the body fat ratio. Yes, eating a calorie surplus is going to help you to build muscle, but to a degree. We don't want to be in extreme measures where you're having thousands and thousands of calories, because you're going to put on more body fat compared to muscle. Whereas if you have a moderate calorie surplus, not overfeeding, body fat is going to be very, very similar, exactly the same. So it's just that risk to reward ratio. You don't actually need to dirty bulk. You don't actually need to overeat in terms of recovery post fat loss. So avoid large cheat or binge meals. So when we actually approach dietary choices post fat loss, it is really advisable to opt for planned refeed meals as opposed to uncontrolled binging episodes. So if you stuck to your diet plan from Monday to Friday, and then on the Saturday, you know you're going to go out for a meal with your partner, your friends, your family, plan that in. That's going to give you a psychological advantage to stick to your meals. It's also really essential to maintain portion control. So quarter carbohydrate, quarter protein, half vegetables, represented as your 8 fingers and also your palms. And also practice mindful eating to stay attuned to hunger and also fullness to use as well. If you are really struggling, hydration is so key. You need to be constantly sipping on water, unsweetened tea or coffee throughout the day, and then selecting nutrient-dense foods to satisfy cravings without excess calories by focusing on balanced meals that support your progress, that prevent setbacks, and also help to plan ahead to prevent that impulsive eating and maintain a dietary discipline. So let's say you do fall off track and you do binge, or perhaps you have a large cheat meal. Hey, it's not the end of the world. Have that pity party, then get back on track. But if it's happening repeatedly, then you need to actually ask yourself, what specifically am I achieving from this? How is it going to impact my goals? And what needs to change right now to get me back on track to avoid these large cheat meals or binge meals? So that's where you look at strategic planning around nutritional adherence from the Monday to Friday. And then on the Saturday, perhaps you have one meal out, not 2, not 3, one meal. And then Sunday rolls around for your check-in. That's where you can make those changes accordingly. Lifestyle and behavior. This is going to depend on the type of dieter that you are on, your experience level, if you're a strict dieter or if you're a flexible dieter. Now, if you're a strict dieter, a less experienced competitor, or perhaps this is your first diet that you've completed, you're probably going to be faced with a little bit of anxiety when you're confronted with food choices post-fat loss. Now, this personality type tends to be highly neurotic, relying heavily on structured meal plans and also meticulous food tracking to alleviate stress. You know exactly what you're having meal by meal. While proficient in following established routines, you might actually struggle with interpreting bodily feedback signals accurately, just because you become accustomed to having 5 meals a day, which are broken down into their macromolecules, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and also the number of calories. So sometimes you need to actually listen to your body's signals to be able to make better choices with your nutritional adherence. Then we got flexible dieting. So if you're someone that's experienced, you've got strong biofeedback skills, you actually listen to your brain and also your body, your resilience to emotional swings caused by the diet. For example, when you are on low calories, you probably are going to have a few mood swings and also changes to your training. You're going to adapt very, very well to these circumstances. So when food goes up, that's going to give you a balanced approach to nutrition and training, and your ability to adjust to different situations, whether it's eating out or simply just an increase in the amount of food that you're consuming right now, is going to contribute positively towards your success and optimal performance levels. So you actually need to put yourself in one of these categories and be honest with yourself, because this is going to help you. It's going to help your coach to make better choices when it comes to strategically planning your nutrition post fat loss for your recovery. Then we've got flexible dieting. So maintaining effective tracking is going to be essential for achieving your fitness and also your nutrition goals, especially when you're facing fear related to eating or perhaps increasing the number of calories that you're going to be consuming as well. So for strict dieters, they probably want to maintain a regimented meal plan, meal 1 to meal 5. Also, we want to encourage flexibility with selected food options or predefined food list. So instead of having like 5 strict meals, perhaps within 3 of those meals, you can use a plug and play protocol. So instead of having white bread, you have brown bread. Instead of having chicken, you have beef. Very, very simple and very, very easy way to navigate nutrition. And this is going to help to provide education to build confidence in handling greater food flexibility. There are no good or bad foods. There are no foods that are going to be detrimental to your health. But of course, these labeling terms and also the way we describe these foods could perhaps hinder whether we actually have that food within our meal plan or not. Then we've got a macro dieter. So you're capable of selecting food sources based on your macro goals. So how many calories you're having, carbs, proteins, and fats. Pretty much you have different foods every single day. The value is variety in diet to maintain interest and enjoyment. This is absolutely massive. And this is something that I do personally myself. Unless I am entering a photo shoot or perhaps a contest, then I'll move towards the strict dieter, where I have the exact same meals every single day to standardize my nutrition. But during the off season, I think it is really important to see that interest and enjoyment with your food, because food focus, yes, it's there, but more so on training performance. And we can adjust your macros to align with peak hunger times. So let's say you get hungry around 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock at random. Again, we could put more food around those training windows compared to in the morning or in the evening. So you start with macro-based options, and you can set macro targets plus or minus 10 grams per macro per day. So it could be at 300 to 320 grams of carbs, 190 to 210 grams of protein, 60 to 80 grams of fat. That's going to allow for flexibilities to match calories or macros within the meals to achieve daily goals. So very, very different in the way that you could approach flexible dieting. For those that are a strict dieter, then that regimented meal plan is going to be super important. Whereas if you are a macro dieter and you can control your behavior and also your psychological state around different foods, then this could be the better option for you. Flexible dieting and untracked meals. Now, when we actually approach untracked meals, it is really important to practice mindful eating, minimize distractions, being fully present with that meal. So eliminate mobile phone, eliminate the TV, eliminate any distractions, and it's just you and that meal. Setting calorie targets for dining out can actually help to maintain control over calorie intake and support your overall dietary goals. So when you go to a restaurant or cafe, you could actually look at the menu and look at the number of calories on there, or perhaps you could jump online a couple of days before, even a few hours before, just to make sure that, hey, the calories that you've given yourself and also the calories that are within that meal are going to match your nutritional adherence and also the target set. So the macronutrients and also the calories. Research restaurants in advance. Very, very simple. Just check out the restaurant, see what cooking oils they use, opt for dishes high in protein and also vegetables, aiming for that portion control once again. Request no added oil, butter or dressings on the side, because the restaurant's idea of a portion size but also cooking oils that they use in the amount that they use is going to be completely different to yours, especially if you've been using one cow over the last few months. Aim for 1 to 2 untracked meals per week as part of a balanced approach. Again, this is going to give you a psychological advantage and actually understand that, hey, there are foods that spike your blood glucose levels, but there are no foods that ultimately are going to put on 1 pound of body fat, 10 pounds of body fat, so forth. We want to increase your intake of water, soda, or hot beverages to manage your appetite. That is pre, intra, and post when you are eating out. and then focus on enjoying the social aspect rather than solely on food. There seems to be a trend now that whenever you go and enjoy a social occasion, it has to involve food and drink. It most definitely does not. However, the relationship we have with food has been conditioned since birth. So you have birthday parties, you catch up with friends, family, partner. That way you actually enjoy the comfort of food, but also their social. We want to pay attention to hunger and fullness cues throughout that meal. So whenever you're 80% full, okay, put the knife and fork down. If it's the case that you can finish the meal, fantastic. Or perhaps move towards increasing water intake, soda or hot beverages. Schedule that untrapped meal for later in the day if training earlier in the morning. So if it's a weekend and you have a birthday party and you know you're going to be eating at that birthday party, in the morning, get your training session done. And then plan your meals strategically up to that, pro-veg or pro-vat, and then load your carbs at that meal. Consider placing untrapped meals post-training on days with high physical exertion. So if you are someone that does a good amount of cardio or a good amount of steps, or you've been dieting for a long period of time, it's really important that we do have a nutrient-dense meal post-training. Disordered eating and poor body image. We actually want to monitor feelings of guilt or anxiety around eating, because that's going to be crucial as it may indicate an unhealthy relationship with food. When we observe cycles of binging and restricting, that can also be concerning. So these behaviors might actually disrupt balanced eating patterns. So another thing that we need to make a mental note of is if we're avoiding mirrors or check-ins related to body image, that could actually suggest body dissatisfaction or distorted body image perceptions. So that's where we need to move towards a very, very loose approach. So for example, you avoid body weighing and taking pictures. We just focus on kind of the check-in form. How do you feel out of 10? If it's not a 10, why is it not a 10? What needs to change other than avoiding body weight and also taking pictures? We also want to maintain daily contact with one another, which is going to emphasize positive and celebrating improvements. So if you're struggling, please do reach out to your coach. Please do reach out to me to make sure that we are on that track and we're improving ourselves by that 1% every single day. Super, super valuable, super, super important. Please do use us. Then we want to encourage eating without weighing meals, with the vegetables occupying half a plate and a protein quarter. So if you become obsessive over the scale, over that numerical digit, we need to remove that. We want to focus on portion control, quarter carb, quarter protein, half vegetable, using the Eat Well guide. We also want to focus on the hunger rating. So if you're an 8 out of 10, 80% full, then great, fantastic. If we're not, what needs to be added to that meal to increase satiety? Now we want to redirect emotional reactions toward positive aspects of progress. So what did I achieve this week? What's the number one thing that I'm working towards right now, which I'm looking at improving every single day to be able to get to that goal? It could be you completed your steps. It could be you've done your cardio. It could be that you've completed your resistance training sessions. You could have got a PB in the gym, or perhaps you've had a compliment from somebody and you were struggling with your body weight or even taking images. These are all massive positive influences, which is going to help with disordered eating and also poor body image. We also want to establish a no-fail plan that you can adhere to and then gradually reintroduce structured eating habits. So what works for you right now is the most important thing. If weight loss is not working for you, then we need to focus on maintenance. Once we've managed to establish that routine, then we look at structured eating habits. But ultimately, it's looking at a goal that is sustainable, that's realistic, to make sure that it contributes towards that long-term success if weight loss is your goal and you've been fixated on stale weight. We also want to consider involving a psychologist to provide additional support and guidance. Now, this is very much last resort, because for a lot of people, when they lose weight, they have this ideal figure that they want to look like and also ideal stale weight. You may not know it, but as you start to transition throughout that phase, then it becomes a little bit more apparent. Now, if you're not at your desired stale weight goal from the start of the program towards the end of the program, and you're starting to get disordered eating and also poor body image just because you see yourself as unsuccessful, then considering a psychologist and even just someone that you can use CBT with, cognitive behavioral therapy, is going to be massive for your healthier relationship with food and also promoting your overall well-being. Perhaps you thought you wanted to lose weight initially, but now you realize, having gone through the program and you've not lost weight, that it wasn't actually weight loss in the first place. It was actually improving your relationship with food. Support network. So as your coach or any coach that you work with, I want you to set short and long-term goals for post-show period prior to the event. So what is it you want to achieve between phase 1 and phase 5? We also want to make sure that we're checking in, and there's so many communication channels. So using WhatsApp, using the Fit Coach app, using the members area. This way we can stay on track with what it is that we're working towards and any obstacles in our way. We also want to educate you on your current physical and mental state. So where are you right now? How many weeks is it going to take us to get to your future successful self, and be realistic at all times? We also want pre-planning for post-show eating habits and dietary adjustments. So once phase 2, the dig, is finished, how do we transition into phase 3? And that needs to be broken down between coach and also client. We also want to consider and plan vacations and elective surgeries which may disrupt normal routine. So if you know that you're going to be having surgery, it could be dental surgery, it could be physical surgery, or you're going on vacation, communicate that with your coach, and that way they'll give you a strategic roadmap of what you can achieve leading up to that, and what's the expectation around that, and then what you can achieve post. Friends and family, surround yourself with like-minded people. They say that you are the 5 people that you surround yourself with, whether you like it or not. So you need to remove negative influences from your life that hinder progress. The faster you do this, the faster you get results. And then educate your friends and family about your goals and aspirations. They may not necessarily understand why it is that you want to lose weight, but they don't necessarily need to understand. They just need to know. What you need to understand is how that's going to benefit you and how that's going to contribute towards your long-term success. And then engaging in social activities that aren't centered around food, bowling, going out for coffee, visiting parks together. This is absolutely massive, and it can nail the hammer on the head from getting a good result to getting a world-class result. And then finally, track and recovery. Split into 4 areas: sleep, libido, food focus, and also training performance. Sleep is going to massively impact all 3. So if you're not getting good night's sleep, look at the number of hours that you're sleeping, look at the quality of that sleep as well, because this is going to impact your energy and your motivation. Then we got libido, so sex drive. Poor sleep is actually going to massively impact sexual function. So sufficient restorative sleep supports your hormonal balance, which is crucial for your sexual health, and also things like fats in the diet. Please don't just eradicate fat because you think it's fattening in itself. That is a myth. Yes, it contains 9 kilocalories per gram, but it has so many multifunctional roles which can help to get a good night's sleep and also improve your libido. Food focus and hunger. Sleep is going to influence your hunger hormones such as ghrelin and leptin, which regulates your appetite. So we need to make sure, again, sleep is absolutely spot on 100%. And that's going to actually reduce cravings for high calorie foods or overeating or poor food choices as well. And then finally, sleep and training performance. Optimal sleep is going to help to enhance muscle recovery, coordination, cognitive function, and when you actually are sleep deprived, that's going to impair reaction times and your overall athletic performance.